Mr. Rute, thank you for talking to Kosovo.
Thank you for having me.
At the end of quite busy schedule, what is your chief impression about Kosovo, and what was your key message primarily to Mr. Albin Kurti?
Well, I must say my overall impression is cautiously optimistic, in a sense that we see in the region that there are tensions, particularly, of course, what is happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina at the moment. There are some continuing, ongoing tensions between Kosovo and Serbia. But at the same time, I think there is a huge opportunity with new leadership in the EU, re-established leadership in the EU, NATO now with a new Secretary General, new Deputy Secretary General, but also many people here in the region, including in Serbia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in Kosovo, really wanting to bring this region to good neighborly relations and to really tap into the potential of the Western Balkans here, instead of continuing with all the troubles we have had in the past.
Today, speaking of the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina, you mentioned that both sides need to make certain compromises. Do you have something particular on your mind?
Yeah, the problem is that I might have something on my mind, but it doesn't work if I would speak about it out in the open. What I really want to stress is, first of all, when it comes to KFOR, that of course NATO is completely committed to KFOR, that I see this as an anchor not only in Kosovo but in the whole region. But also that we try to be even-handed. So when I'm giving messages to the presidency, the three-member presidency in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Sarajevo, or today here in Pristina, or when I'm on the phone last week with Aleksandar Vučić, the Serbian president, who will visit me this month in Brussels, that I try to be even-handed. I know that my colleagues from the European Union try to be even-handed, because we have only one interest, and that is to make sure that when tensions are on the rise, that we dial them back, and that we are able to tap into the potential.
When you were speaking of the opportunities that you see, opportunities including the EU, do you see opportunities now with the new administration back in the United States, primarily when we speak of the region here, and also about what's going on in Ukraine?
Yeah, well, I'm optimistic about the Trump presidency. What he did with Ukraine is really important. He broke the deadlock. And the US is now in conversation with the Russians, and as we speak, with the Ukrainians in Saudi Arabia. And we all want this war to end. All of us. I mean, it's terrible. So many people lose their lives there. And the fact that President Trump was able to break that deadlock, and he was the only one who was able to do this, and to get, hopefully also in a durable way, the Russians to the negotiating table is important. And I have no doubt that the Americans want to play a very positive role here in this region. They are playing a positive role. They are part of KFOR, always have been involved, but I'm absolutely sure that the Trump presidency wants the same. Obviously, they are very much focused now on Ukraine, and rightly so.
How the agreement on Ukraine is feasible at this particular moment?
Well, I think it will be a step-by-step approach, and hopefully we will get to a ceasefire / a peace deal as soon as possible. We will see a stop in the fighting. We will stop of the killing of people on both sides, which is really terrible. But we also have to make sure that it is a durable, it is a lasting peace, that it is not a sort of Minsk III, that the Russians will try again in a couple of years. It has to be long-term, sustainable, lasting, durable.
Do you rule out any possibility that the NATO troops could be deployed on Ukraine soil in case there is no agreement with security guarantees that the NATO is requesting?
Well, you know, this question is so difficult to answer. Why is that? Because, well, first of all, when it comes to NATO, the US has been clear. The US doesn't want NATO membership for Ukraine, and the US has been clear that they themselves do not want to have boots on the ground in Ukraine. So these two red lines, they have clearly established. What we now need to have first is a peace deal, and this was what Donald Trump told me a couple of weeks ago when we spoke on the phone. Hey Mark, it's great that you in Europe guys are talking about how to maintain the peace, how to get security guarantees for Ukraine, but first we need a deal, a ceasefire / a peace deal. I'm very happy that the French and the Brits are working very hard to work on one model which might work in case of a peace deal for Ukraine. But there might be other models to do that. And it has to start, and here I agree with President Trump, with an actual ceasefire / a peace deal, because you cannot maintain a peace if there is no peace. So it has to be step by step.
Back to the region. To what extent the Balkan leaders are still the factors of stability? Very often Mr. Dodik is portrayed as a chief troublemaker in the region. What about Mr. Albin Kurti and his one-sided and uncoordinated moves? Do you see him rather as a partner or as a troublemaker?
Well, you know, I try to work very hard on my relations with the three-member presidency in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Of course, I do not have myself relations with the regional leadership of President Dodik of Republika Srpska, but I have my contacts with the three-person presidency in Sarajevo. I have my relationship here with Madam Osmani and Mr. Kurti, and of course with Alexander Vucic, who I know for many years, and we have always worked very well together, and I really look forward to him visiting me hopefully next week or the week after in Brussels. But then, of course, I will be, in my messaging to all of them, I'll try to be as even-handed as possible, because in the end it doesn't make sense for me to have preferences with whom I would like to work more than with the other. In the end, what we need to achieve here is a dialing back of the tensions. Nobody wants to go back to 1995, or in the case of Kosovo to 1999. And nobody, and everybody wants to tap into the potential.
Let me rephrase the question. To what extent one-sided and uncoordinated moves of Mr. Albin Kurti is endangering regional stability?
Well, but then I should, in the case of even-handedness, of course, when I speak with the Kosovar leadership, I tell them it is important that you guys are as predictable as possible. And please do that. And when I speak with President Vucic, I'm also clear that when it comes, for example, to what happened here in 2023, that we need the accountability about what happened here. And I know that he wants that, by the way, so I have no doubt that he will work on this. But I will very much press this with him. I will press with Kurti and Osmani the need for predictability. Again, being as even-handed as possible.
When you are mentioning accountability, and you connect that to Belgrade, Mr. Alexander Vucic, to which particular cases do you refer to?
I mentioned then what happened in 2023.
Do you refer to Banjska?
Yeah, Banjska, and of course the attack on the KFOR forces, where 94 KFOR soldiers were injured.
What about Iber Lepenet's investigation? Do you have anything about...
You mean last November?
Yes.
Well, that is an investigation as far as I know, which is ongoing. I hear a lot of rumors, and so here I would really say let's stick with the facts. They are not established, so let's stop finger pointing to anyone.
So that many months after, you confirm that the investigation is ongoing?
Well, I'm not investigating, but what I understand is that people in the region are investigating what happened. And I want to prevent regional leaders from starting to point at each other, because that is not helpful in my overall mission, together with the EU, and particularly, of course, Mr. Sørensen, who will lead the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue, the importance of making sure that we dial back on the tensions instead of adding to them.
To what extent are you aware in a very sensitive, I think the precise word is very difficult, aggravated situation Kosovo Serbs are in? To what extent are you aware? And can you guarantee that Kosovo Serbs can survive under these circumstances before both sides come to certain compromises, as you say?
Well, first of all, for KFOR, we are here to take care of everybody in Kosovo. Everybody. That includes absolutely the Kosovar Serbs. The fact that KFOR has now quadrupled its presence in the north, has tripled its visibility in the north, I think is clear testimony to the fact that KFOR has the ambition to remain the anchor of stability in the whole of the country, including in the north, including making sure that the Kosovar leadership, when it comes to the KSF, can only deploy the KSF with prior concurrence of KFOR. When it comes to the Kosovar police, that it is important that they inform KFOR what they are doing, etc., etc. So we're really sticking to the agreements.
Yet one-sided actions from Pristina are still taking place in the north that are actually destabilizing the community itself.
And again, when you say this, I want to be even-handed. So when I speak with Kurti and Osmani, I tell them refrain from unilateral actions, generally. But when I speak with President Vučić, I tell him establish accountability on what happened in 2023. And that is being even-handed. When I speak with the leadership in Sarajevo, I say to all three members of the presidency, including the chairwoman, but also the other two, from each of the three constituent peoples, as a collective, take leadership in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Don't delegate this to a high representative. Yes, he's there. Yes, I support the office of the high representative, but you should not need that person. You should be able yourselves to run the country, but it can only happen if the three of you agree.
Is Mr. Vučić still the factor of stability for the West?
He is the president of Serbia, and Serbia is, let's say, in terms of the size and the impact in the region, a very important country. And that means that I like to work with him, I like to work with Osmani and Kurti, I like to work with the three members of the Bosnian and Herzegovinian presidency. And I don't have friends or enemies there, I like them all the same. And I want them to make sure that we dial back the tension.
Recently, the Kosovan defense minister said that Kosovo is ready to defend itself, I quote, even without NATO. How do you comment on that?
Well, I'm not going to comment on everything every politician is saying. I can only tell you...
Is Kosovo sustainable without KFOR?
Yeah, Kosovo in itself is a country which is recognized not by all members and all allies in the alliance, but except for 4, is totally recognized as an independent country. That's Kosovo. The leadership of Kosovo is important because they have to make sure that this country stays stable. KFOR is here committed because we see ourselves as an anchor of stability in this country. And there is nobody here in Kosovo who wants to kick us out. They want us to stay here, they want to have a strong relationship.
What if the US walks out of KFOR?
Again, all my impressions are from my talks with the American leadership that they are very much committed to the Western Balkans, very much committed to KFOR.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, really.